Hey everyone, back tuning into today's video. We're doing JMA Friday today, so having a look at the weather for the coming month across the stars. And this takes us up to Christmas Day from a Japanese model. Can you believe? We'll also have the CFS V2, and we'll have a little bit with the Beijing Climate Centre as well. So quite a big update, and it's going to take us on through the first month of the winter. So before I get on with that, just to say about the ads, there's links to articles on all the pages, gas with it, have a browse widgets and click through the links if there's any articles that you're interested in, and thanks so much for doing that. There's video ads to most of the pages. They open up the content when you watch them, they'll close back up again. That's helping to pay for the website, and also helping to pay for the website is Christmas shop. So if you just click the button that says Christmas shop, it'll take you to our Christmas shop, and then from there, if you've got any Christmas shopping to do at Amazon, you can either use the search widget to find whatever item you would like to buy. Alternatively, you can just click through the Amazon banners in the Christmas shop. That takes you directly through to Amazon, and then when you get to Amazon, just do Christmas shopping as normal. But because you've gone from Gasworthies to Amazon, we get a revenue fee on the things that you are purchasing, and thanks very much. Doing a huge success this year, so thanks to everybody that's done their Christmas shopping via the Amazon banners in Gaz Shop. But you've still got plenty of time to do your Christmas shopping, of course. And it's Black Friday today, so if you don't want to be fighting it out in the aisles with all the other people that are going to be shopping on Black Friday, then just stay at home and do Christmas shopping at Amazon via Gasworthies, and you'll be able to have a cup of tea and a cup of coffee and just do your shopping in peace and comfort. Right, let's get on with the month head look ahead, starting off with the JMA model. These are the 500mm heights broken down into weekly periods. Excuse me. Blue is extrapolating to low pressure, with yellow, orange and red extrapolating to high pressure. So what we see for the coming week, and the first week takes us from the 27th of November through to the 4th of December, so through into the start of a new month, see a deep trough of low pressure up to the north of the country, ridging down to the south. So that's a classic westerly signal, really, for the coming week. Low pressure coming through the country with the jet stream is unsettled. Showers along spells of rain, could be really quite wet at times, and also potentially stormy. Not sure you can really make out the black lines here. I'll just get rid of that drawing, and not sure you can quite make these black lines out, but that's the jet stream coming through the country. It's a very strong jet stream that's blasting away through the country during the coming week. So that could be really stormy at times, and potentially very wet as well. Now go through to the next week period, it's going from the 4th through to the 11th of December, and a little bit of a change because the trough starts to weaken. It's still there to the northwest, but it is lifting out a bit. It's allowing this ridging to start to build up from the south and the southeast. So the jet stream is being pushed a little bit northwards and easing off, and it's generally just turning a bit drier, a bit calmer. High pressure building through the country. There could be frost and fog, but it's a fairly mild air mass still. But because high pressure is very close to us, with light winds, long nights, if high pressure is clear, we will quickly radiate heat out into space, and we could get frost and fog with that sort of setup. Always most unsettled, of course, in the north and west, close to that trough of low pressure. And then finally, going through to the last 2-week period, this going from the 11th to the 25th of December, so this takes us up to Christmas Day, which is 4 weeks today, I think, isn't it? So it's getting very close now. We find the ridge pulling out into the Atlantic a little bit, so this could be transitional, but probably hints that it's trying to turn a bit colder here, I would suggest. The high pressure is trying to move out into the Atlantic. Trough looks like it's setting up over Scandinavia, so at very least we should start to turn the flow northwest to southeast, so we should start to bring the air from a colder source of the Atlantic, probably from Greenland. And if this trough was to deepen, of course, over Scandinavia, if this was to become a really deep trough, we could start to pull down northerly winds. So I won't go too overboard with this because it's a fairly weakish signal, and we'll know more next week, I think. But it could possibly be, and as we're getting up towards Christmas, the JMA is trying to turn things a little bit colder. That's going to be one to keep an eye on. Having a look at CFS V2, these are the latest 500mm heights broken down to week periods from the CFS V2 from America. The first week period taking us from the 27th of November through to the 3rd of December. Low pressure up to the north, high pressure down to the south. It's basically what we're just looking at from the JMA for the coming week, with jet stream coming right through the country like that. It's unsettled, could be quite a lot of rain, particularly in the north and west where it could be a bit stormy. Temperatures should be mild. The next weekly period, going from the 4th through to the 10th, is when the JMA wants to start building that ridge up from the south. And look at this, the CFS is in agreement with that as well. So we should start to find high pressure becoming more influential after the first few days of December. Again, fairly mild air mass, but because the high pressure is positioned more or less over the top of the country, and certainly across Western Europe, it could start to turn quite cold again in that area. The high pressure will just depend whether it's a clear high or a cloudy high. If it's a cloudy high, not going to be that cold. If it's a clear high with long nights, we're going to radiate the heat into space very quickly, and you'll start to get inversions, you'll start to get frost and fog. Could turn really very frosty in that sort of setup. So just depends on the exact nature of the high pressure, but I wouldn't be ruling out frost and fog for that part of December. And this takes up to the middle part of the month as well. This is from the 11th through to the 17th, and still the suggestion really is that high pressure is dominating the weather, centred somewhere across Denmark, Germany, so it's bringing the flow in from a southeasterly type direction. That would be cold. I'm sure the model, we'll have a look at the temperatures in a moment, I'm sure the model will be showing mild, because it can't take into account surface and low level cold air. That just happens because heat is radiating into space under that area of high pressure. So the anomalies will probably look quite mild, but I would suggest that's quite a frosty, maybe foggy type scenario through to the middle part of December. And then the final week, the 4th week, shows a complete turnaround with a deep trough of low pressure coming in off the Atlantic as the ridge sort of collapses down into southern Europe, and some of it pulls out into the central part of the Atlantic as well. So I think the jet stream again starts to come in and maybe starts to go on a southerly track. Probably not lining things quite right for northwest to southeast trajectory with the airstream, but I think that's certainly a good deal more unsettled. Could be a bit colder as well if this trough starts to become centred over or to the east of us, such as the JMA is hinting, trying to place that trough over Scandinavia. Excuse me, again. So the temperature anomalies, we'll just whiz through this from the CFS V2. The first week looking very mild from the 27th of November through to the 3rd of December. The next week, the 4th to the 10th, is when the high pressure is starting to build in. That is looking milder than average as well, but I do think, as I suggested, because it's a mild air mass associated with this ridge, it's just that as the ridge builds over the country, the heat radiates away and you get surface cold air, although it probably is very mild in the upper atmosphere. The model can't really factor that in, so I think this is colder than the model is suggesting, as is the next weekly period. This one is the 11th to the 17th. And that's again looking significantly more than average, but if we're under those anticyclonic conditions, it will be colder than that on the surface. Then the next weekly period from the 18th to the 24th through to Christmas Eve, looking milder than average again. This is as the Atlantic starts to power up again, so it probably would be a milder than average period, at least initially, perhaps turning a little bit cooler towards Christmas. The temperature, the precipitation anomalies, I should say, look like this. So the coming week, generally wetter than average. That makes sense because it's Atlantic dominated. The next week period, as that high pressure builds up, turns a bit drier than average. Again, that makes sense. The third weekly period suggested to be drier than average as well. So mild and dry is what the model is signalling for this period. I would suggest probably quite cold and dry through this middle part of the month. And then it turns wetter than average running up towards Christmas. This is the 18th to the 24th of December. Above average rainfall anomalies coming back. Again, makes sense. The Atlantic is beginning to push back through. But I do think there could be some potential there to start turning things a little bit colder on that running up to Christmas, but it's a long way off, of course. Finally, having a look at the charts from the Beijing Climate Centre. These are 500 millibar heights broke down. It's a 10-day period. The first 10-day period takes us from the 26th of November through to the 5th of December. Same idea as the other two models. High pressure to south, low pressure to north. Strong jet stream coming through. So it's wet, windy, potentially stormy, particularly so in the north. Generally quite mild. The next weekly period, going from the 6th through to the 15th, the trough of low pressure is starting to move more to the east as this ridge is building up from the south. Again, that's in agreement. Broadly, it's in a slightly different position, a little bit further south than the other two models, but nevertheless, it's the same sort of idea. The trough starting to lift out a little bit, the ridge starting to build a little bit, so turning drier. Probably fairly chilly if that ridge becomes centred over us. Next weekly period, this takes up to Christmas Day, 16th to 25th. This is a 10-day period, I should say. And the trough, again, up to the north, the ridge down to the south. So this doesn't build the ridge quite as much, actually, as the other two models. So probably still quite unsettled and fairly mildish running up to Christmas. The next 10 days takes us into January. This is Boxing Day through to the 4th of January. And this one shows, again, low pressure to the north, ridging down to the south, probably turning a bit colder though. There's a bit of a trough developing within the 500 millibar flow. Especially over Scandinavia, going to this side of the chart. So maybe a little bit cooler up towards the end of the year and the start of 2016. So I think what we're looking at, certainly a very unsettled week for the coming week. The start of December looks quite unsettled, very wet potentially, and mild. After that, I think we're probably looking at a bit of a build of high pressure taking us up towards the middle part of the month. Exactly where that high pressure sits is crucial. If it's a little bit to the south of us, it's going to stay mild with those southwesterly winds. If it does build as far north as the CFS and the JMA want it to, and I think they're probably on the right lines, if it builds as far north as, say, Germany or Denmark, or even over the top of the UK, then it will quickly turn cold under that high pressure in December. So frost and fog, and that kind of thing. And then probably turning unsettled again as we run up towards Christmas. When we start to send the jet stream on a northwest to southeast trajectory as we get to Christmas and the end of the year, we'll know more on that next week. So that's how it's looking. Not a particularly wintry outlook for the first month of winter, but there could be some cold and frosty, foggy weather within the month. So we'll see how it goes. That's all for now. It's all very highly experimental, of course. Tomorrow we'll be doing the weekend forecast with the tried and tested shorter range model. So come back for that tomorrow. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.